Let's talk. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, Larry. What were you saying?
And we're back. Let's do this.
Yes, welcome to our special Eternal Damnation episode of the Discover South Florida podcast. Larry Mastropieri, the broker and owner of the Mastropieri Group, based right here in South Florida, alongside myself, John Laws of Discover South Florida. So you may be a little confused by the thumbnail, like why would we be talking about hell? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, because if I saw myself in hell, there probably wouldn't be any alcohol, which, there is going to be a lot less in South Florida now. That's according to the South Florida Sun Sentinel. This was an article from this week. It was a nice write-up by Philip Velas. And essentially what he was talking about was craft brewery shutdowns. Now, I don't know, which I know Larry's not a big drinker, but, myself, I don't consider myself necessarily a craft beer connoisseur. I like alcohol. I like drinking. I like trying different kinds of beer. But evidently, in the last 12 months, there has been a large decline of craft breweries in Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade counties. 9 in total, which actually represents 1/6 of the total breweries based in South Florida. So, that's a decent amount. And the article kind of tells some of the firsthand accounts of how we got to this point. Some of it's economics, some of it is change in interests. I guess craft breweries were all the rage there for a little while, and then some people found some other stuff, like those seltzers are really popular right now. I guess I've drank some of that. Larry, what are your thoughts?
I get that commentary and their pitch there on how the population has moved towards seltzers and less towards craft beers. I think a big factor in this, it really is more the increased rental costs to own and operate these things. I think costs just overall are higher, and these guys haven't been able to increase their what they charge for a beer. And then generally speaking, I think these guys are successful when they have a cool theme and a cool vibe, and they're bringing in a lot of people, and that hasn't been the case always, right? For all these places. So there's some cool breweries that we all know of in South Florida that do a lot of stuff. They have a lot of things going on, events and things like that. And I think that's what you really need to bring in people to continue to sell beer, right? Because it's not just about brewing beer. They gotta have a good venue, right?
Yeah, for sure. Right. I mean, a lot of these places are restaurants. So it's not just about the alcohol itself. It's about the atmosphere. It's about the food and that whole experience.
And so the theme here, I think, across the board is whether you're a restaurant or any of these retail type establishments, you have to be able to bring people in the door. So you have to have a good vibe, a good atmosphere, and a good product to sell. And if you don't, you're gonna go out of business. And that's been seen in the restaurant world as much as it's been seen in the craft brewery world. So it's just harder to do business. It's more competitive. Things cost more, and the margins are smaller these days. And that's what I think a lot of these places are seeing down here in South Florida overall.
And it was interesting in the article, they were throwing out a lot of numbers that go along with what you were saying in terms of the declines in, alcohol sales and that sort of thing. Craft beer sales reportedly fell flat in 2022 before declining 5.3% in stores and 6.7% in bars and restaurants nationwide in 2023. So there's no doubt it's definitely down, especially in adults ages 18 to 34. Reportedly are drinking less than ever. The reason being, quote unquote, it's unhealthy, which they're resorting more to heavier marijuana use.
I was just going to say that legalization of marijuana has curbed the alcohol consumption. You know what else I think is something they didn't comment on in the article? During the summer, things slow down. There's less population here in South Florida. And so I think this article is timely as we're entering season again. Some of these restaurants and bars and breweries have not survived the summer lull. And pre this year, so say like 21, 22, even 2020, 2021, 2022, we've seen an increase in the population overall, and that population was staying in South Florida during the summer. But now it feels like the population has kind of receded during the summer as well. So I'd say overall that's kind of something that I've noticed or feel living down here. It's kind of back to what it used to be pre 2020. So overall, I think that's part of why these restaurants and places have gone out of business too. They haven't been able to keep up during the summer.
Yeah, they've one of the big points that they had cited was how cost of materials and that sort of thing have gone up too. My interest in it really came from just having more options. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a heavy drinker, but I like trying different things. I mean, I'm not necessarily high on the IPAs, and ever since this past St. Patrick's Day, I don't think I can even touch a stout anymore. So it's kind of like, yeah, maybe we just, it's a fad and it's cyclical, and maybe we'll be having this discussion again in, another 20 years. But the article also had mentioned that in the 2010s, local breweries had really sought to peel away from Budweiser, Corona, and Coors drinkers by having more options. So
sure,
clearly wasn't alone in that regard.
There's still a number of great breweries that are in existence here in South Florida. I mean, I can think of like 3 in Boca that are still happening. Maybe they're gonna tap out soon too, but no pun intended there. But still, yeah,
he'll be here all week, everyone. So now getting closer to what I would consider hell, if there is such a thing. I don't know what you believe in. I know what I do believe in. And it's riding on the Brightline train and not having a Taylor Swift sing-along theme. I don't know if anyone's been hearing about this, but Taylor Swift, who, I had to look up the schedule for the record. I didn't know off the top of my head, I swear. She will be performing at Hard Rock Stadium Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. She's here for 3 nights. And Brightline, to their credit, are offering the option of sing-along trains, which will take fans to the concert. And they'll be playing, I'd imagine, all Taylor Swift's incredible hits. I'm sorry, I couldn't believe I just said that. Playing some of her more popular songs. And what hurts me, too, is as I was looking at the article here, I know the producer that wrote this up, the one I had looked at was off one of the Tampa local TV affiliates websites, and they're making jokes in there about Getaway Car in Florida. I assume those are songs. I can just tell the way it's worded, but I mean, it goes right over my head. Larry, be honest, is Dana dragging you to a Taylor Swift concert this weekend?
She is not.
I'm not judging you. You got to do what you got to do.
She is not. She is not. What's interesting about that? I think the trains have sold out, right?
Oh yeah, they have. I was kind of cringing, so I really didn't want to talk about that, but here we are.
Brightline sold out.
But you get to Brightline's credit, and they're obviously doing all they can to find ways to market their product to different audiences. So I tip my hat to that. But oh man, can you just imagine the screaming preteen girls running up and down the aisles and parents getting hit with stuff and the songs blasting and the bracelets and I'm not a parent, but right now I have the deepest respect and condolences for any father out there who's going to have to be dealing with that this weekend, because that's, oh man, like I said, if there is a hell for me, that's kind of what I would be picturing.
I got us 2 tickets, John, you and me.
You know what? I did you see how much they cost right now? Now, bear in mind, this is the day before the concert. I had to look. The cheapest one tomorrow, from what I saw, was $687. One ticket. I didn't go to the trouble of looking like if that's like on the floor and seats everywhere else. But the cheapest on Saturday and Sunday, $732. I don't know if there's anyone in this world I love enough that I would drop that kind of money to see a concert. $700. That's insane. That's
Miami soccer, Lionel Messi.
Well, yeah,
numbers, right? Taylor Swift doesn't play.
No, she does. How long has she been on tour now? Has this been going on? I feel like this has been going on for 2 years.
Forever. She just keeps doing it.
Yeah, no wonder she's a billionaire. When you're selling tickets for that much, I mean, oh man, like everything about that hurts me thinking about it. So I'm gonna try to stop, but I can't.
Yeah, let's leave
Anyway,
Taylor Swift behind. Let's
all
calm
right.
you down.
You know, let's switch
Talk
to a
real
singer
estate.
that I think we appreciate a little more at this point. Oh man, it's Billy Joel, as we had talked about a couple of weeks ago. His Manalapan home that had gone under contract for $49.9 million a few weeks ago. It was reported this week that it closed for 42.6. So one more luxurious property that I guess Billy is selling off at this point. You know, I guess he's kind of at that point in his life that maybe doesn't need all of it. I can understand that. Actually, I can. I would have no idea. But if I did have money to invest in that sort of thing, I would understand if, needed to liquidate a little bit. But wow. Yeah. So 42.6 million. What do you think?
I think it's right in line with the comps.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it sounds like he finally decided he wanted to sell, because previously he was priced a lot higher, over the years, but he made a lot of money, arguably. I don't know if he invested a lot into it, but he basically doubled,
almost doubled it.
Doubled, his purchase price from 2015. Right. So
again, and you do a lot more investing in that sort of thing. Have you owned properties that you never actually stepped foot in hardly at any point? Because yes, he bought that place for $22.1 million. This was back in 2015. And I'm sure somebody who does high-end real estate investing like that they, buy places and they never even go there. I don't know. That always feels so weird to me.
This is a totally different thing. This isn't really investing, right? That's them buying nice homes, and fortunately, they bought them in 2020 or 2015, and now it's 2024, and they rode the wave, right? That's fortunate, right? In my opinion, that's not investing for cash flow. What I do is a very different thing, right? So, so I would just say this is unique. Yes, there's properties we buy and we don't really spend much time in. We do the evaluation, make sure we buy the right property, and then we turn it over to our managers and we move on with our lives to the next acquisition. But this is a different thing altogether. So
yeah, I just, again, I don't have all the footage right in front of me here, but it's a beautiful place. I mean, it's really. It's what I would picture in a home selling for 40 some odd $million right on the water.
What's unique is your oceanfront, and you have the spot to park the massive yacht, right? You got intercoastal, and you got the ocean. So that's the specific nuance to these types of lots here in that area.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess another question in that regard. They go under contract at $49.5 million. What happens when you get into the negotiations at that point once you're under contract? Because, they shaved $7 million off it.
Well, they probably went under contract for 42 million or 43
million. Oh, it was.
Okay. 44 million. When it's pending on the listing, that number that it shows as pending is not the actual contract price. The contract price isn't disclosed or the close price isn't disclosed until closing. So yes, there might be some negotiation there. Maybe they did go under contract at 49 million, and then they found things or negotiated things, whatever that might be. But usually they'll negotiate, then go under contract, and it'll be somewhere close to the number that we're seeing. So 42 point whatever million, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the tricky part that everybody needs to remember. When they're looking to list their home for sale, or they're looking to buy something, they need to understand that, hey, those pending numbers that they're seeing isn't the actual number that the deal is going to close for. It could be, but it also might not be. And so you've got to be careful. It could be higher, it could be lower. You just don't know until it closes, or maybe you contact the agent, or some party that's involved, and you get the discrete information. So that's a thing to keep in mind when you're buying real estate. And we do this with our clients all the time. If we know a property was listed, say at $1 million, but it's worth 800 and it's been on the market for 200 days and it's pending and it shows $1 million pending, well, it's probably going to close closer to 800. And the seller just decided to finally accept something that's at the market price. And so while it's pending at $1 million, that's a good time to go list your property at 800 or 850 or 900, because you might be able to get a buyer to come in there and believe that, oh my gosh, this market value is going up. Look at this one pending for $1 million, if they're not the wiser, right? So these are all little tactics we use to try to help our clients, win, right?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yep.
That's your world. So since we're talking about pricey homes on the water in Palm Beach County, this is one that we've talked about a lot. It's been on the market now since February of 2023. I guess to people who are in the industry, they refer to this often as the Boca Trophy. Now, for anyone who's watching this who's unfamiliar with the Boca Trophy, I'm under the impression that it is the single priciest undeveloped piece of real estate in Palm Beach County. Is that right? Is that close? I mean, I don't want to assume here, but I know it's got to be up there.
It's up there for sure. I mean, we just compared a $42 million, finished product with oceanfront access and intercoastal access. And this is priced at 40 million. Now they're in the process, and we've talked about this a bit, but they're in the process of building there. So,
yes.
So we,
but they've said that before. I mean, it's still sitting there. I haven't been by it recently.
Last time I was over there, they were moving dirt. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I didn't see it come out of the ground yet, but I haven't driven down that road in, a couple months now. So,
yeah. Yes. But there it is. The Boca Trophy. You did a vlog on this, I believe last summer.
Oh yeah.
It's 2.6 acres. It's been sitting there, $45 million, no change in the price. The land was previously purchased for $8.3 million. That was back in 2021. And those were the designs for the home and accessories that they were going to add on the property. So again, we're talking about Billy's Place on the water at both ends, with the home already on the property, goes for $42 million. Here's one that's completely undeveloped and it's $45 million. What justifies putting that kind of a price tag on a property like this?
So the question is are they including the finished product in the sale price, right? Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to the broker today to talk to him about it, because we just closed a deal last week, myself and this broker who listed this property. And we were texting back and forth about it a bit, but we didn't get to have a phone conversation, unfortunately. So my suspicion is that it includes the finished product, number one. And if you look around Boca Raton in this area, you can find properties that are 30, 40 million finished brand new on the intercoastal like this. They're usually in Royal Palm Yacht and Country Club, which is a totally different thing on some level. So that's something to keep in mind. But Royal Palm Yacht and Country Club, remember, is on the mainland. Yes, it's on the intercoastal, but it's on the mainland. So this property, the advantage it has is you could walk to the beach from here, right? You just walk up the road and you're on the beach, which is really nice. You can also build out and put a huge dock like your neighbor. You see that the neighbor right there. So that's really nice. And then the value of Boca Raton waterfront real estate is huge because of its proximity to the inlet, which is right just 5 minutes south of there, 10 minutes south of there by boat tops, right? Mm-hmm. So that's also nice. The disadvantage to this lot, in my opinion, is, you're right on the intercoastal, and parking a really big mega yacht, if that's what you want to do there, could be tricky because one, you have to dredge all that out, and they'll do that probably for the 45 million. That's usually what they do. But it's on the intercoastal in the main, it's in the main path of where all the boats are going. So there's going to be boat traffic. There's going to be waves hitting that boat. And a lot of boat owners don't love that because it creates a little bit of damage. Even if it is in the go slow zone and not the go fast zone, people don't always respect that.
Oh, you're
right?
telling me Floridians would disobey the law? I'm shocked. Truly.
It's so funny. So I have a good story about this. I was on a home direct intercoastal, I don't know, 10 million bucks with a client. And we're walking through the backyard, and the two agents, are telling us about the property. And the first thing we asked was, hey, is it on the go fast zone? And he goes, nope, it's in the slow, no wake zone, and as soon as he says that, this boat just freaking flies by, and just creates crazy wake. And then literally right after that, another one right after that. So it was priceless. He's like, well, I guess they're not obeying. And so my clients immediately are like, okay, I don't trust the no wake zone. Like, yeah, I wouldn't either. So anyway, just an interesting concept when you're thinking about buying real estate with boats on the direct intercoastal. It's a little tricky when we work with clients who are doing this. We got to find the right property that's a little protected but has this awesome view. It's tricky. So
right. I guess my other thought on this subject is, where Billy Joel moved to. It's right. I mean, it's not far from there. It's in that intercoastal. I mean, it's directly on the water, and he paid a fraction of that. That's still why I'm trying to understand, what justifies putting that high of a price tag on it.
You know where it is on the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, I mean, if you look at that, the sanctuary has its advantages, right? The sanctuary is protected. It's a sanctuary, and it's protected a number of which ways. It's fully gated, super secure. But I'm saying if you want to, I don't know if you can show the sanctuary or not. Oh, that's got it. This is a video. The sanctuary is protected in a way that is advantageous to boat owners, which is why a lot of boat owners like the sanctuary overall, because there's this barrier, land barrier in between the intercoastal and some of those properties, and it's pretty too. So, but you can quickly jump out to the intercoastal. Now that property at the sanctuary is off of federal highway, which means it's on the mainland. So again, you're not walkable to the beach per se, like these guys are, which is an advantage in my opinion. So some people may not think it's an advantage being on the island here in Boca. When a storm comes around, you might be evacuating. But somebody who's buying this, they're just flying out on their PJ in advance of the storm coming, and they're having their staff move the boat usually. So in advance of a storm coming. So that's not a big deal to them. But
I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So switching from residential to more commercial, we'll have the video posted later this week, but you put together another vlog on the Aletto at Sanborn Square, which was a project, was approved last May, I believe. It would be the first Class A office space in Boca Raton in 25 years. Why do you think it took that long for them to add real quality commercial space to downtown Boca Raton?
I think that in general, it's been more advantageous or more cost effective or more profitable is probably the word to add living residential space, right? So that's a valid statement. And then also Boca Raton has a lot of office space overall. They're one of the bigger office space cities in South Florida. So believe it or not, I know that might sound surprising, but they're absolutely bigger than just south of there, Deerfield or Del Rey. Now West Palm is a whole different animal, right? And so where the bulk of the office space has been constructed is in these bigger metros like West Palm or Miami or Fort Lauderdale and Miami, obviously. And overall, it just probably hasn't made a whole bunch of sense. In fact, I think you may have seen this in the past. We haven't talked about it, but Jeff Green, who was building a big office space project in downtown West Palm, he fought the city forever to try to change it from office to residential. Those big, massive skyscrapers. They said they sat half done for a long time while they were fighting over this. And so, most developers wanted to build resi. So this has become, I think this developer would have built resi if the city and the community didn't push back a little bit. And then, after thinking about it, I think it's not a bad idea to build office space here, right? To your point, it's the first in 25 years. You're going to get some really, really interesting businesses that are going to move into this space, and they're really going to like it. And frankly, we've looked for office space in this area for our team and our business, and there's not a lot of great space like this there's not any new space that's this nice in downtown at all. So this will be super interesting. This is exciting.
Well, and you discuss it in the video. To me, it seemed like the biggest perk, having more parking. The project, for anyone who's unfamiliar with the Aletto at Sanborn Square, which is being built just south of the old Meisner Plaza, east of Sanborn Square. It's 3 buildings, and one of those buildings is a 550 parking space parking garage. I believe it's 5 or 6. What is it? 5 or 6 stories, 7 stories. In any case, but 550 parking spaces. Because I swear, anytime I'm in downtown Boca Raton, that's like my biggest gripe is I can't find anywhere to park.
And what's great about this is it's office. The office space, it'll be used during the day, but when most people are out, at night, and when there's events at Meisner Park, as an example, when they, the amphitheater that they're building out over there, which is exciting, and all those things, when they hold really big events, I mean, it's near impossible. Half the time I live close enough where we can walk or just Uber over, and so we don't drive, even though we live like 3 minutes away, because the parking's just crazy in those moments. So this will be great. I mean, you'll have 550 additional spaces in the evening that aren't being used for these types of events. That's going to be epic. So, yeah.
What's funny too, and having more of a bird's eye view from getting the drone footage of the development they're doing in that area, that seemed like the spot most sorely needing a makeover, if you will. Yeah. Like you see everything else around it, be it residential spaces, whatever the case, they're all relatively new buildings, and then you got all these old shops, that don't look like they're utilized much. So it seemed like whatever you're going to put there, you needed to just liven it up, kind of redo that whole area.
That, and there's adjacent buildings that need that too. You and I we're more like pro, like, hey, liven it up. Let's make these things awesome. And we talked about this too in the vlog that we did. But there's a lot of awesome retail on the first floor in these plans, which is awesome. So you're gonna get more great restaurants, shops, whatever can come in there in that little sector, and that's gonna be awesome. So.
Yeah, no, and one of the things that I respect about the city upkeep of Boca Raton is that so many of those buildings traditionally have been very well maintained over the past 30 plus years. That's why when I see those and they look that run down, it's like they were begging to be knocked down and put something better in its place.
Yeah, it's too bad there was a building just adjacent to it. They almost got the full block, right? But they had to do like this L shape design. I'm sure they couldn't acquire that last.
Right, which is like, I don't even know what that place was there. I'm sorry, I don't have the video in front of me, but yeah, it's like that last little ugly spot, kicking and screaming, that just doesn't want to go.
There's a number of spots like that next to developed properties here in Boca Raton where you're just like, I wish they sold. Why were they being stubborn?
Right.
And they probably
the fact that we don't even know what it's called, and considering, it's like, oh, we know Sanborn Square. Oh, we know Meisner Park. Like, we know some of these places. The fact that you can't name what it is off the top of your head is very telling.
Yeah. They probably got offered good money. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, speaking of closures, I know, Larry, you were pretty distraught about this, and I tried to console you as best I could, but Big Lots filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is affecting at least 10 locations in South Florida. Of course, the good news is those properties will now be available for lease. So if you were looking to open your own store, I don't even know what the heck you would put in any one of these locations. You have 10 to choose from.
So the trick
you deal with some commercial real estate. What is the perk or take in a situation like that?
Well, so Big Lots likely has a lease signed with the owners of those buildings, right? And they have a lease signed at X dollars per month or X dollars per foot or whatever it is, And so one of the things they were commenting on in that article was the terms that they had negotiated were pretty good compared to the current market. So because prices have just gone up quite a bit, and Big Lots had previously negotiated these terms before the prices had gone up. And so you don't just give up the lease. The lease is worth something. So what they're doing is they're subleasing or getting confirmation or approval from the owner to sublease the building that they're leaving. So businesses, whatever it might be, Publix, other big box retailers in the area will go bid on that lease, and they might even make money on that. So like, if there's a competition and say you're at, I don't know, just make up a number, $50 a foot, and that's really cheap, and Publix is willing to pay 55 and Target's willing to pay 60, you might end up in a situation where you're making money every month on this. Big Lots might be making money on this. So that's what's happening right now. And that's what they're explaining. Right. So it's kind of interesting.
Is that a common tactic for large national retailers when they're in a situation like this, is to try to, reclaim, kind of get back on some of their losses by, selling their leases to other outlets?
Well, an example of that is Sears, right?
Yeah.
Right. They in the Boca Mall, you and I I think we've reported on that a bit in the past. There's not a whole bunch of information about what's going on over there still, right? We don't have a great update on that, but that's exactly it. They have this lease on that space for X amount of years. And they've, as I understood it, tried to put something else in place there. But the owners of the mall couldn't agree with Sears, the entity, to allow them to put somebody else in there in their place. And so there's like this negotiation, and there's like this contractual limitations of what you can and can't do in that situation for both parties. And so sometimes it's advantageous, sometimes it's not. Like sometimes you have a lease that's way over market if the market goes in the opposite direction, right? And so that doesn't work. So then that's a whole different thing. But in this case, Big Lots has something valuable, and they're filing Chapter 11, right? So they're trying to get out of some of this stuff, and that's the move. So
I got you. Well, full disclosure, I don't think I've ever actually been in a Big Lots.
I don't think so either. But there's one out west in Boca.
There was actually one not far when I was living in Royal Palm Beach. I was like, I'm sure I probably drove by it. I just was not familiar with Big Lots for the most part. But on a more serious note, there was another hurricane this past week. You might have heard about it. It was bad. It clearly wasn't as bad, I think, as initially projected. Ended up being a Category 3 storm, Hurricane Milton, over 120 mile per hour winds when it made landfall in Sarasota County, caused flooding, power outages, affecting over 3 million homes. As far as our areas were concerned, I kept hearing about that tornado or tornadoes that affected Wellington, which, coming from a guy originally from the Midwest, that now it was like, now you're speaking my language a little bit, and hearing people talk about like how surprised they were, they come out of nowhere. And I was like, well, yeah, it's tornado. That's what they do. Very unfortunate. And I guess my question with a lot of this stuff, since we've been talking about insurance, be it for homes and floods and everything else. How do you see that affecting, what we've been going through lately?
I've been asked that question, and the other question I've been asked a lot is, hey, is it going to affect buyer sentiment in the market, right? And so to answer the first question, the one you asked me, is TBD, right? But I would tell you that there's going to be a lot of claims in Florida. And so this isn't helping. That's for sure. It's not a net positive, right? And we already have our struggles in the insurance world, getting insurance. We're underwriting a 62 unit residential multifamily building right now. And I'm trying to, with my partner, figure out, what is the insurance price? We can't even, we own a bunch of buildings and we can't even tell you what it's going to be, right? We're trying to get indications from the insurance brokers, trying to figure this out. We're getting some kind of indication, but you just don't know the answer until you get into the deal, which sucks. So you're underwriting a deal up front, trying to put an offer in, and you're making an agreement on a specific offer, and insurance could swing one way or the other, and mostly the other, which is up. And you're just gonna be kind of in a situation where you're in due diligence and you're trying to renegotiate now that you found out that the number is much higher. And if you overestimate it, well, then you might not be able to make the deal work. So you might not make an offer. So then you just don't buy anything, right? So it's a tricky place to be in. And yeah, so I think generally speaking, it's not ideal. It's not good. Yeah.
Well, and it's not like Florida hasn't had to deal with big hurricanes in the past, and they've shown the stats. I know there have been more over the last decade, but it still isn't anything new for natural disasters to take their toll on Florida. I guess what kind of gets me thinking at times, it's like, well, why is this one so much different than some of these? I mean, I can remember Hurricane Andrew back in the early 90s and how detrimental that was to certain parts of Florida.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, why this one? Something about this feels different, and I don't know why.
Well, it's like a perfect storm. When interest rates go up, a lot of times that impacts insurance costs. People don't realize that, but insurance is not just some random person or random company just giving you insurance. They have to get money from investors in order to write insurance policies and to pay out claims, right? That's how it works. It's an investment play, right? And so if interest rates are higher, then the return the insurance companies have to deliver to their investors is higher by default, because you can go get risk-free returns at X% now, which is much higher so treasury bonds, risk-free. All right. And so if the risk-free return goes up, well, then the risky return has to go up in order to do that. And so that makes it hard to get investors at the same old price that, or return as before. So in order to get a higher return, they have to charge more to the people they're insuring. So that's number one. And then you have the just wild South Florida, wild, wild West situation where there's just fraud and a lot of other things going on. And then you have the huge storms, and you have the natural disasters on top of all that. And this has been something that's been piling on every year. And so that's a big thing. And then cost of materials and cost of labor has gone up. So they're paying out bigger claims than they've ever have before. And so all this just is a mess. It's just a mess. So
yeah. All right. Well, enough doom and gloom. We have the 2024 Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show set to kick off this month. I feel like the two biggest boat shows, I don't know if it's true, this is coming from, a relatively newcomer. I feel like the one they have in West Palm Beach and the one they have in Fort Lauderdale are like the two big ones. Am I right?
The Fort Lauderdale one is epic.
It's the biggest one. I've been to that one.
It's the one. Yeah. I have a few buddies that are in the boat yacht industry, whether they be selling or building or servicing these types of boats and yachts. And this one's awesome. This is a blast. If you haven't gone before, you should totally go check it out. It's great to just walk around, grab some food, check out all these awesome boats. Some of them they'll let you go on and you can tour these things, and they're all just like epic. It's really cool.
According to the South Florida Business Journal, the showcase generates close to $1.8 billion in economic output across the state. That's amazing, that kind of impact from just, a week-long boat show. But again, I guess the kind of money you bring in here to buy high-end, boats and yachts and so on, makes sense.
So South Florida is the yachting capital of
Right.
at least the United States, right? And so maybe a much larger area than that. So this is the spot to do it. This will be one of the biggest yacht and boat shows in the world, frankly, right?
All right. Well, that's something that we'll may have to check out. It runs from October 25th through the 29th for anyone who's interested. And Larry, unless you have anything else to talk about, I think we're just about done here on our latest edition of the Discover South Florida podcast. Anything else you want to talk about?
That's it. Let's wrap it up. We'll catch you guys next week.
Sounds good. All right.